Time to draft. Here we go with pack 1. Opening up Biovisionary, a fun card, but not something you want to first pick in limited. There's Crown Ceratalk, 4/3 Trample, one of the largest 4-drops in the format, and certainly the best uncommon. The best commons are Basilica's Creature and Zertar Shrine. Overall, quite the weak pack when you look at the quality of these commons here. Not something you want to pick up early. I love Spire Tracer, but that's because you can usually get them very, very late. I think the pick here is between the Ceratalk and Basilica's Creature, and overall I like the 2-drop more than the green 4-drop. I think that in Gruul you can always get large creatures later, and actually the ability isn't all that important for Simic, which is much more reliant on evasive creatures and early evolve cards to make the whole strategy work. I think that this creature should be a good start here. And we immediately get a pack where the rare is missing, so not too much information there. Orzhov Charm and Gruul Charm, two very strong cards, definitely. I like Gateway Shade, but not that early. And we have, well, not the strongest commons, but a little stronger than the last pack. Devour Flash, Deathcult Rogue, Balustrade Spy, and Scorchwalker Active Treason. Even Sage Row Denizen are always nice to have in your deck. I think the picker is between one of the charms, and Orzhov Charm is a removal spell, which Gruul Charm, while Gruul Charm only deals damage to flyers, so I think Orzhov Charm is better. And the fact that we have a Basilica's Creature already, of course, makes it a little easier to make this pick. Overall, it's very possible that we are looking at the best charm here in Orzhov Charm, and then Gruul Charm is just maybe the second or third best charm. So Orzhov Charm it is. Wow, that's incredible. Two people in front of us took 2 commons out of this pack, leaving Orzhov Charm, 1000 Lashes, and Holy Mantle in there, which usually means that they are thinking that by passing Orzhov cards, they make sure to be positioned well within their guild. And yeah, we are reaping the rewards here. 1000 Lashes is one of the best uncommons in the set, and with our start we are very happy to see that. We can expect the 2P to our right not be in Orzhov. I wouldn't pick an Orzhov common over 1000 Lashes ever, so I'm going to take that. It's kind of sad that we're passing Orzhov Charm, but there's also a Holy Mantle, and we did pass Crown Ceratalk and Gruul Charm just now, so it's not entirely clear if people to our left are going to draft Orzhov, and we are always going to be on the better side of things if the persons to our right aren't drafting Orzhov. Now, this is very interesting with Skark Guildmage, Drakering Krasis being the strongest cards in the pack still. I think that Skark Guildmage is a very, very good Gruul card, and Drakering Krasis is the best Simic common, so this is somewhat of a confusing pack because there's no Orzhov cards, and the strongest cards by far are in guilds that have no overlap with Orzhov, so that's kind of sad. And I would like to put my left neighbors in Simic and Gruul, but I can't really take Zerichi Tiger out of that pack because it's just so much weaker than the alternatives. I think I'm going with Skark Guildmage here. I think it's probably the strongest card, and I just don't see anything that I want. There's a Corpse Blockade, but that's just not a card I'm willing to take that early. Now that's looking better. We have Cartel Aristocrat and Smite with Orzhov Guildgate, Prophetic Prism, Metropolis Sprite, all very fine cards. I don't like Urban Evolution all that much, and Totally Lost is only fine. I think the pick here is between Smite and Cartel Aristocrat, and I like the Aristocrat better, in fact. I think it's a very, very good 2-drop for the Orzhov deck, and it works very well with some of the other cheap creatures that you want to be playing anyway. It kind of hurts to pass a Smite, but I think it's fine to just make sure that we have the Orzhov cards in our pile when going into the second pack. And that looks like a pretty easy Deathcult Rogue, much better than Millennial Gargoyle. The Commandos are fine, but they cost 5, so yeah, not much else in here. I'm just going to take the Rogue. It's quite late for all these Simic cards to still be in the pack. Flux Mage, Simic Charm, Drakewing, Crazes, and Keymaster Rogue, with the Charm probably the best, and then it's between Flux Mage and Drakewing. I like Crazes better, but I suppose that you could go for the Flux Mage. And Keymaster Rogue has been a crucial card for me in my Simic deck. So yeah, this is quite the pack, but I believe that we do have to pass the Simic cards now. We can't hate draft reasonably out of this pack anyway, so I'm going to go with the Maneuver. I don't like to play Millennial Gargoyle if it's not necessary, so yeah, let's go with the Combat Trick. And another weak pack, Slate Street Ruffian and Night Watch, the options for us. And I'm just going to go with the cheaper card once again. This is the pack we started with. We see that Spire Tracer is still in the pack. Also Backing Apparition and Hold the Gates. Riot Gear can be fine as well. Gonna take Backing Apparition. Has some nice synergy with the rest of the set, and we don't have any gates yet, so I kind of like playing a Backing Apparition. That's a nice gift as well. Late Gateway Shade could easily make it. And Gutter Skull. I've certainly picked that card much higher than 11th pick, so yeah, not too unhappy about how things are going. Let's just hide everything that's not Orzhov for now and hope that our signaling worked out. Pack 2, Wrecking Ogre, sadly not in our colors, but we might want to keep that in mind. It's certainly a card that you can easily lose to. The best cards for us are Devour Flash and Kingpin's Pad, with the pad being one of the best Orzhov commons, maybe the best one, so I'm just going to take that. And we might want to keep in mind that Death's Approach, Devour Flash, and Gateway Shade are all in this pack, so it's not unlikely that we wheel one of these. Even Urbis Protector wouldn't be the worst, despite costing 6. Now it looks like to our left we have, well, certainly not a Boros Drafter. There's a Sunhome Guildmage in the pack, so that tells us something. There's also Giant Ediphage, which is a huge insect creature. I'm going to pass up on that, not only because it's green. So for us, there's really not all that much in here. Court Street Denizen and Deathcall Rogue look like the cards that we could pick. And in theory, there's also the potential to splash Sunhome Guildmage if we manage to pick up some Boros Guild Gates. I'm not the biggest fan of splashing in this format, so I think I'm going to go with the second Rogue, which does mean that we want to play more Swarms, but that's the case already, so it doesn't look like a huge commitment, and it means that we can pick up some Shadow Slices or other Cypher cards a little more highly. And this is the Dimir pack with Dinrover Horror and Psychic Strike. No Orzhov cards, it looks like. So we basically have the option to just hate draft something or take a mediocre card like Shielded Passage or Millennial Gargoyle, which I don't really want to do. So if we ever splash something, it's probably most likely to be the Horror. I think we could just take that out. And that's just because I really don't like the Gargoyle in my deck, so I'm going to go with the card that has the higher upside. Yeah, it looks like Boros is open from the left, but well, I'm still hoping that people aren't picking up my Orzhov cards, and if they are, I can't really change it now. So yeah, I think this is a clear Executioner's Swing. Corpse Blockade is nice, but Executioner's Swing is just a removal spell that deals with a lot of the auras in this format, and Orzhov, in theory, is the deck that can best negate the damage that the creature already dealt. So Rapid Hybridization, nice removal spell, but your opponent does get a 3/3. So if we are playing against blue, we have to be aware that they might have a cheap removal spell. That's a very interesting pick with Balustrade Spy and Holy Mantle still in the pack. Usually I would say that Holy Mantle is the much more powerful card, but looking at our cards so far, we don't really have all that many creatures that we want to put the mantle on. And Balustrade Spy fits a very nice role in our curve and our overall strategy, giving us a 2/3 flyer to dominate all those gargoyles, or just to continue attacking for 2. It's also a rogue, so we take away a way to block Death Cult Rogue from the card pool, and I think all these reasons make it a lot better to pick Balustrade Spy rather than Holy Mantle. One more reason being that we want to play more swamps than plains at the current stage. Yeah, I think that looks reasonable. Gift of Orzhova, however, is just the enchantment that we want. Flying a lifelink on a 2 toughness creature, giving us a probably a 3/3 or better that hits for lifelink. It's very hard to beat for a lot of decks. We also have Cartel Aristocrat, which really loves Gift of Orzhova, and yeah, that's a great pickup. Here we see Death's Approach and another Balustrade Spy. I think that Balustrade Spy is the stronger card, and as it doesn't rely on your opponent's graveyard too much, I also like to have a second one of these. There might be a Death's Approach tabling from our first pack, so it's not entirely unreasonable to see one later. This pack is pretty much empty for us. We could play Glaring Spotlight, but I don't think that's a card that you want in your decks almost ever. So hate drafting Zortar Swine looks like a reasonable line. This is the pack I was talking about. There's the Death's Approach next to a Gateway Shade. Now, we still don't have any gates, and we already have one Gateway Shade, so I think that picking up a second one is probably a mistake. You don't want to have 2 in your hand and then be forced to drop 3 mana 1/1s, which is it's at its weakest the moment it comes down. It's more of a late game card, and we have one already. So diversifying our deck by picking up a removal spell here should prove valuable. Could take Mental Vapors here. It's certainly playable in the deck I have, as I have some ways to carry it efficiently. Alternatively, I could hate draft Bomber Core, which I think is the strongest card in the pack, but my deck is very, very well set up to fight a Bomber Core, so I'm going to take the discard spell. This pack is interesting because Riot Gear and Shielded Passage are still in the pack. Now, Riot Gear on Death Cult Rogue is okay, but not insane. Shielded Passage can be nice, but yeah, it's not amazing. I think going for the cheaper card, however, should be what we do here. Front we see Denizen Wild Rebirth are fine, but Armor Transport is playable in almost any deck. I don't like to run it, but I could see it being the 23rd card. And that's pack 2 for us. Okay, pack 3. Kingpin's Pet, easily the choice for us. Metropolis Sprite, Keymaster Rogue, Croconora, Duskmantle, Guildmage. A solid pack, nothing too exciting. I'm going to take the Pet, and we probably won't wheel anything. Maybe we can take the Razor Tip Whip for the Oars of Mirror or something, but let's hope that that won't be necessary. Croconora probably the strongest card here, followed by the Guildmage maybe, but yeah, Kingpin's Pet is a great first pick. Here we see Scar Goliath, a very expensive Blood Rush creature. I thought it was amazing, but the mana cost is really prohibitive, so not the biggest fan anymore. Righteous Charge and Shadow Slice are nice aggressive options, and the alternative is a Smite, which we don't have yet, and which works very well with the whole Orzhov game plan, because you can almost always force your opponents to attack as they are losing to extort, and in our case some evasive creatures otherwise. I'm going to go with Smite, and from my experience it's very likely that one of these spells tables, and then we can still decide if we want one or not. I would prefer Shadow Slice to Righteous Charge in the deck we are building, because we do have all this evasion and we are looking at a heavy black mana base. Wow, that's pretty insane. That's a 3rd pick Clan Defiance. with Arrows of Justice, Executioner's Swing, Dutiful Thrall, and Oars of Guildgate all in the pack. Now, that's actually very difficult to evaluate because we don't know what the Clan Defiance is going to do to us if we pass it. It is probably going to end up in a Gruul deck, most likely. So if we pick up a removal spell here, then we might lose games or even a match to Clan Defiance, but we make our deck better. On the other hand, it's very likely to table a card from this pack because of its power level. Let's see, if we take 8 cards out of here, there's only 5 cards left. So yeah, overall, that's probably not the pack to table something. If you look at Plains and these 3 cards, that's already 4. And then it's probably Midnight Recovery, so we won't table anything out of this. I'm still going to take Clan Defiance here. It hurts to pass up on the removal, but I really don't want to lose to that card, and it's very easy to lose to Clan Defiance. With a deck that's playing 2 Kingpin's Pets and 2 Balustrade Spies and a Basilica Screecher, it's very easy to have a Clan Defiance for 4 or 5 mana be absolutely devastating. I'm not sure about this pick, that was very difficult, and we probably, yeah, well, now we definitely won't have the Arrows of Justice that we just passed for Clan Defiance. Here it's Basilica Screecher. At least the Oars of cards from the right are flowing freely, which is to be expected after we picked up 1000 Lashes 3rd pick. There's Death's Approach and Zoroastri's Wine, but yeah, overall this pack doesn't look like there will be much to table for us. Here we have Zamek, Guildmage, and a Syndic of Tithes. That's a very easy pick for us. Interesting that the Guildmage is still in there, but Simic is a bit underdrafted, especially in the 8-4 drafts, I feel like. So, yeah, 2 Denizens, a Zerichi Tiger, some cards that we would play, but wouldn't be overly excited about, especially in the Black Orzhov deck. The Denizen loses a lot of its value. I think it's more of a Boros card anyway, and even there it's not too amazing most of the time. Yeah, we are getting a very good card here. Late Call of the Nightwing. I'm kind of confused because we are seeing good cards in all guilds coming around the table, but Call of the Nightwing is a lot less scary than Clan Defiance, so I'm not too worried about that. There's Dimir Guildgate or Prophetic Prism. Potentially we still have the Din Rover Horror to splash, but I don't think that we currently want to splash anything. However, Prophetic Prism is still a nice card in Orzhov because it's a spell to extort with, and it does fix some of our mana if we ever happen to only draw Swarms, for example. This pack is quite interesting, and that's because most of these cards are very good. Razortip Whip, of course, only being a sideboard option in some matchups, but Death's Approach, Shadow Slice, and Undercity Informer are great for us. And there's still Frilled Oculus, Shamble Shark, Agoraphobia, and probably the best combo trick in Boros in the pack. So, yeah, quite the insane pack that must have been. I'm torn between Undercity Informer and Death's Approach here. I think that the Informer is probably what this deck wants most. Another 3 toughness blocker rather than the situational removal or the aggressive card. We have so much extort now that it's kind of given that we should win the late game. So I'm not too worried about putting Shadow Slices on any of my creatures. I think that this deck has now a very solid creature base, some removal spells, and should have good time playing both defensively and offensively. Here it's between Razortip Whip and Horror of the Dim. Those cards could go into our deck. We could also hate draft Ivy Lane Denizen, which isn't bad against us, but also shouldn't be too much of a problem. I'm going to take the Whip. Who knows, maybe we are playing a matchup where our opponent has trouble beating the Whip. And let's just do that again. A quick check if the bracelets are doing anything. That's activated abilities. Works well with Undercity Informer and Gateway Shade, but that's about it. I don't think that's ever a card you want in your draft deck, sadly, but that's how it goes. Interestingly enough, both Shadow Slice and Righteous Charge wield here, And there's still Drakewing Crazes in the pack, which I first picked a lot, so probably not a single Simic Drafter at this table, which does happen quite often, I feel like. I'm not too sure what I want here. I thought that Shadow Slice was the clear pick for me, and it probably still is, but Righteous Charge can be quite good as well. Let's go with the Shadow Slice. I think if I play one of them, it's probably Shadow Slice. Looks like I correctly identified the cards that would come back, and going to go with Midnight Recovery. Works well with Death Cult Rogues, and yeah, probably not the main deck card, but the one I might play here. A third whip or a second shielded passage. I'm not too interested in a second shielded passage. I can only see boarding it in against red, but I also don't need a third razor tip whip, so let's just diversify a little bit here. Shadow Alley Denizen is actually a card that we could play, but probably won't. I also could have picked up the Shattering Blow because we are wide and could cast it, but it's never going to take great cards from our opponents, mostly Armored Transports and Millennial Gargoyles, so don't think that's too big of a loss. The one thing that we see here is how heavily black we are. Almost no white cards, but we know that to our left the person wasn't drafting Boros, or Orzhov, hopefully, we don't know that. To our right, there might have been a Boros draft. It's possible that our right neighbor took a Boros card and passed us the Orzhov cards. Now, we should have more than enough playables. Not too worried about that. And we actually have quite a strong milling theme as well, with 2 Balustrade Spy and the Undercity Informer. It's not unreasonable to just win the late game with milling. Not going to splash. We have the Prophetic Prism, but that's not enough to splash Din Rover Horror. It's not that great to start with. Now, that's the cards that I almost always want to be in my decks, with Beckoning Apparition being just a cheap spell to trigger Extort and giving us a flyer, which can be very valuable. So this is 21 cards, and we still have a lot of options to go with. Razor Tip Whip is a sideboard card against the Orzhov Mirror or removal heavy matchups, depending on what they show us. And we still have some creatures to choose from, as well as some combo tricks, so more than enough options here. Creatures are quite bad when you look at them. Sometimes Shadow Alley Denizen is good. We do have the black cards, but the great thing about our deck is that almost all of our cards have evasion or extort already, so it's not that important to give any of them intimidate. If we play against a deck with a lot of 1 toughness creatures, then it's certainly a good way to start off the game and block the opponent's creatures. I want to play 17 lands and the Prophetic Prism in this deck. Even though it's quite cheap, we do have all the extort triggers, so we can almost always make use of our mana. Also, our mana base isn't that great with the heavy black requirements, so when we play 10-7, for example, then we do want the Prophetic Prism to provide white mana, as we do need it on turn 3 the latest. Looking at the power level of the cards, I think that Shadow Slice is at the top of the power level, and it works very well with our deck, giving us a late game spell, triggering Cypher, and just working well with the evasiveness of our deck. I think that's pretty easy inclusion. And then it's either going to be an additional creature, just because we don't have that many, or one of these spells. However, I think that all these tricks or card advantage mechanisms are better suited once we know what kind of matchups we are facing. I don't want to be caught playing one of these cards that's very good against a red deck, and then we are facing the wrong matchup, or playing a deck that's good against a control deck, and then we are facing the wrong matchup. So even though the creatures are a bit weaker than what we are looking at here, it's probably correct to just have one more creature. With only 13 and the Beckoning Apparition, we are on the on a pretty low creature count already, so I think I'm going to go with Armor Transport. It's nice with Gift of Orzhova. It can almost always just swing in, but it's also a fine blocker. The alternative would be Slate Street Ruffian, I feel like. And it's somewhat better to put Gift of Orzhova on Slate Street Ruffian if you're playing against a deck with mugging. But if you're playing against a deck with blockers, with flyers or reach creatures, then you almost always want it to be the transport. Yeah, I'm going to go with the transport. I think it's not too big of a deal what you choose there. And then we see which of these cards we board in after game 1. And as I said, I'm going to go with a 10-7 mana base. I think that's already quite a bit of planes, but with 2 Kingpin's Pets and a lot of good removal spells, also 2 great 2-drops that require white, we do need a significant amount of planes to be able to cast our spells. Okay, I like how this went. We have a black-based Orzhov deck, and I'm going to be quite interested to see how this works out.